Hello and welcome along to another video. It's a bank holiday Monday. It's nice and sunny, it's nice and warm, and I spent the whole morning sitting in the chair watching the telly, drinking tea and reading the newspaper. So I've only got 4 jobs planned for this afternoon. Job number 1, I'm going to take some Clematis Armandii Cuttings. Job number 2, I'm actually going to repot this hosta into this pot here, and then I'm also going to plant out some of these little petunia plugs which I bought and showed off in a previous video. They were just little teeny weeny ones. Well, they've grown to such an extent that 1, 2, 3, most of them have actually started to produce little flowers. So what I'm going to do there is I'm actually going to plant them into a trough. This trough here, and I'm going to put, I don't know, 5 or 6 little plants in there, and then plant it and then put this into the greenhouse for another sort of couple of weeks or so. It's a little bit early in the year, even for us down here on the south coast, to start putting bedding plants out into the garden. I don't usually do that until middle of May or even a little bit later, depending on the weather. But I need to get some in, and I'm going to save some for the hanging baskets, which I won't be doing until round about June. But I just want to get these plants going, and when I actually start to do the job, I'll show you how the little plugs that I bought a couple of months ago have turned into nice plants with a nice root system. In this video I'm going to show you how I take Clematis Armandii Cuttings. Now is the best time of year to do that, which either be April or May, or when the flowers have actually finished flowering. And as you can see on this particular plant, the flowers have all finished. They've dropped their petals, and we're just left with some dry stalks. So now is the best time to take cuttings from this Clematis Armandii. It's a superb plant. It flowers quite early on in the season when the rest of the garden is just still waking up. It comes out and flowers before the tulips, about the same time as the forget-me-nots. So it adds a nice bit of colour, and it adds a nice little bit of scent to the garden as well. It has a real soapy, sort of vanilla-y type fragrance, and the insects that are in the garden and the bees that are out nice and early in the year are looking for something, and they can certainly find a little bit of food in the Armandii. Now, if you've been watching any of my previous videos, you will have seen me banging on about this plant. I think it's probably got to be one of my favourite plants at the moment, apart from all the other things that are now coming through in the garden. But for early springtime colour, you cannot beat this Armandii. Having said all that, it grows like a flipping triffid. Now, what I'm looking at here, this is all the current year's growth, and it's all come over this side, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of management and get the thing back over to the other side. So what are we looking for in our Clematis Armandii cutting? Well, it's the same principle with all clematis. We're going to take stem cuttings, so we need to find a piece of current year's growth which is about 3 foot long, not too floppy and soft like the end, and not too thick and woody like right at this top end. So somewhere in the middle is your happy medium. So I'm going to cut it back here somewhere. And as always, it to get sort of tangled up with itself, I'll just release a few of the leaves. So there we have a stem suitable for Clematis Armandii Cuttings. Now this as I've said earlier, this top stem is too thin and it won't root, but as you come further down it starts to firm up a little bit. So I reckon we can get 1, 2, at least 3 cuttings from that one stem. I'm going to take about 6 or even 9 cuttings today, and I'll show you how I cut it, where I cut it, and the mix that I use to actually root the stems into. Because okay, you could use just straightforward potting compost and you probably get some successes from that. But when I do stem cuttings of any kind, be it dahlia or lavender or Clematis Armandii, I think what the stems need is a nice open gritty mixture of compost, sand and a little bit of low nutrient compost. They don't need a lot of food. What they need is to have those bits of the stems, they need to have those sort of almost irritated so that they produce roots. So let's take this over to the table and I'll show you how I take Clematis Armandii cuttings. So first of all is we need to understand where the roots are actually going to come from, and it is here on this joint here, or just below the joint. That is where the new roots are going to come from. So we need to make a cut just on or below that joint. So there we go. We take that leaf off and that leaf off, and then we end up with a nice clean joint at the end there. That is where the roots will come from, and so we need to then cut it off there. So that is one cutting, and then we go up to the next one, and again same principle, just below the leaf node. Take it off there, take off the two, if I can get them off. Take off the two leaves, that's where it's going to come from. So that's cutting number 2. So we already have 2 cuttings, put them to one side. Now this piece of this stem of Clematis Armandii is now beginning to get a little bit sort of thin. So I think if we were to take another cut in there, we may be just pushing our luck a little bit. But I'll try off, and then cut it up there. So let's just have a bit of a tidy up. We've got 1, 2, and we've got 3. Take that off there because that's all a bit of a tangle, and I'll take that off there because there's no leaf on that one, and I'll keep those like that and that one like that. So we've selected our stem from the Clematis Armandii. We've cut the 3 cuttings from that stem. And now it's time to put them into the compost so that they will start to root. Now I always use hormone rooting powder because I believe that helps them develop the roots. You don't need to if you don't want to. Some plants are perfectly happy in a nice gritty open compost, but with these I'm going to use hormone rooting powder. I'm also going to use a little bit of basic compost, a little bit of low nutrient compost, and a little bit of sand. Now they don't need a lot of nutrients. Now shop bought or garden centre bought compost, it comes with a certain amount of nutrients within it to help the plants or the cuttings or the seeds get going. I believe that with cuttings, all you need is a gritty, open, free draining medium with a little bit of hormone rooting powder, and that should be sufficient to get them going. So let's get these 3 cuttings into a pot. So this is our garden centre bought compost. There's a little bit of low nutrient compost, which, as you can see, gives it the really open texture. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sharp sand. So we have a nice new terracotta pot. I like to put cuttings into terracotta pots. Don't ask me why, I just like to. So we fill up the pot there, not too much. Firm it down a little bit. Now we need to give that a little bit of water before we start. So that's the pot watered. We'll just give that a few seconds to drain through. Now we need the stems to be a little bit wet so that they can pick up on the rooting powder. So I'll just dip them into the water, then a nice dip into the rooting powder, knock off any excess, and then just shove that not quite to the bottom, but quite a way in, and then firm it down a little bit. Same process, into the rooting powder, knock off the excess, and then shove it down, and then just firm it in. So 3 Clematis Armandii cuttings, all very neatly in the terracotta pot. I did take another stem, so there'll be another 3 to go into the pot as well. So I'll just quickly do that process. So there we have 6 Clematis Armandii cuttings, not to forget to put a label on it, and then I will put them into the greenhouse, probably underneath the bench. They don't need to be sort of in direct sunlight or particularly warm or anything like that. I'll put those into the greenhouse, and then we'll just wait for them to root. Again, that can vary from anything between 4 to 6 weeks or anything like that. But these won't start producing very much growth until next year, and we can get an indication as to whether or not they've rooted and whether or not they're growing by just looking just below where I've cut them, because that is where the the new shoots, you can actually see the new little new shoots will come from. So the roots from the bottom, new shoots from the top, and then I'll give them, I don't know, 4-6 weeks, something like that, and then I'll just check the hole at the bottom, and if there is roots coming through, I'll then take them out, split them up, and then hopefully we'll have six new plants. So potting on the hosta couldn't be more simple, really. We bought this yesterday at our local supermarket. We were doing a bit of shopping and I saw this and I thought that was pretty good bargain really for £3.99. I'm a little bit skeptical about buying plants from supermarkets nowadays because they don't seem to have anybody on their payroll that knows how to water plants. They seem to come in on lorries, they just put them onto these huge big stacking trays and then they just leave them. And I've been around our local supermarket many a time and I've just seen plants that have just withered and died and not one member of staff has gone out there with a watering can and given them a bit of water. Now the reason I'm potting this on is because the same principle applies to these plants as it does with a previous video that I made a few months ago now, when I was explaining how shop bought basil dies within a week of you bringing it home. And the same principle applies with these plants and most of the plants that you find in a garden centre, particularly at this time of year. And the growers have just developed the knack of planting the seed into the right amount of compost, giving them the right amount of heat, light and process and water to get them to this stage. Now I would say that that is probably about as good an hosta as you're going to get. Now if I were to just leave that in that compost, it would eventually sort of die, because that is in sort of peak condition, and for somebody that wants to sell it, peak condition means at the point of sale. So if we don't do anything to that plant, it'll just go downhill. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to just take it out of the pot, ease it out of the pot if I can. And you can see it's got a fairly good root system, and it goes right round, and they're quite tough roots. So we just need to tease a few of them out. Now that is ready for another pot. Again, I wouldn't say it's pot bound, but it's getting fairly close to it. So there we are, we've teased a few of the roots out. I'll just pop that to one side. Now I'm putting it into this larger pot. So again, just a mixture of normal potting compost and perlite, because the perlite, as we know, holds on to a little bit of moisture. So I'll put a little bit of soil in there. What I'm now going to do, I'm actually going to use the pot as a template in there like that, so that I can then just fill the compost around the sides. Slightly, a bit more down this side. So there we go. We know that the pot has the plant has just come straight out of this pot. We'll put that in the middle there. So that gives us the template, and then we just take the pot out. Plant the plant in the middle, and again it's not level with the surface, it's just below the surface, so we have about an inch between the top of the plant and the compost. So then it's just a simple job of just filling in around the plant and firming in. Not too firm, but firm enough just to hold the plant in place. Just pop a bit more in there. Lift those leaves up and see it going in. So there we have it, one shop-bought hosta already repotted on. Now I'll give that a little bit of water and I'll put it in a nice shady place, because hostas do like nice shady places, and I'll wait for the soil to settle, and then I'll probably top it up a little bit later. As you can see, they've all developed a nice root system from the little plugs, and now all I'm going to do is just spread them out equally along this this little trough. So just moving it with my fingers and go from there. I'm just going to sort of stagger them as we go along. So there we go, a little trough of petunias all planted up. As I said earlier, I'll put those into the greenhouse, let them sort of develop and you know, just get a few more roots into the soil. Once I'm happy that there won't be any more frosts, then we can bring them out with the rest of the bedding plants around about the middle of May, or even a little bit later. But that's job number 3. Now job number 4 is a fairly straightforward job. I've just got to cut off a few unruly shoots from my pink rambling rose. Now I've said earlier in a previous video, when I did some springtime care on the rambling roses, what I want them to do is to actually fan out across the fence. The roses are not actually attached to the fence itself, they're attached to the post that holds the fence up. They're then on wires that run across, and then I attach them to the wires in a fan shape, and that's the effect that I want. Any rose shoots that then sort of come out towards the garden, they just get chopped off. Don't matter what time of year it is, I just chop them off. I don't want them to come out and then get caught up in all the other flowers and the shrubs that's in the garden. So that's just a really straightforward job. It's just a matter of snipping off a couple of unruly stems, and then that's job number 4 done, and then that's me finished. So this is the pink one, and the pink one meets the white one just about there, and then the white one goes all the way along right to the very end. Now the white one will come out before the pink one, so we will get a steady supply of rambling roses, starting with the white and then ending over here with the pink. Well, that's it then for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed making it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you'd like to know when the next video comes out, don't forget to hit that notification bell. So just one point before I go, you might be asking yourself, why am I surrounded by old, dying, withered spring bulbs? Well, that's the subject of my next video. So if you want to know what I do with old and withered and dead and dying spring bulbs each year, tune into the next video and I'll show you. But for now, goodbye.